little boy Parashar, he ran up to that scholar and he said that he has a question for him. So, that scholar looked very down on him. But anyways, little Parashar was little brave, so he reached down. He filled a handful of sand, and then he asked, like, "Can you answer how many grains of sand do I have in my hand?" So the scholar was speechless. Like this was not the kind of question that he meant. So then Parashar continued to say that, forgive me to say this, but you are so blinded by arrogance that you can't see the good qualities in others. A tree with good fruits will always bend down, and a person with good qualities will also bow low to others' virtue. So all your knowledge is worthless as sand if it does not help you to develop a good character and devotion to God. And so those was the words spoken without a malice by that little child that actually pierced the scholar heart. And then he climbed down and bowed down before the boy in defeat, and he learned a lesson. So then years later, there was another disciple who approached Parashar and asked that what qualities do I need before I'm able to realize that who I am. So, what Parashar replied was that only a self-realized person can give you a thorough answer. So, you go to that Saint Ananta that lives in the town of Holy Tirupati. Go to him and he will answer your questions. So, normally in Bhagavad Gita also God has instructed us in chapter 4, verse number 34 that Tadviti Pranipatina Pariprashnena Sevya Upekshanti Te Jnanam Tattva Jnanam Tattvadarshina. So, like we should learn the truth by approaching a realized soul. We should render some service, and then, in reverence, we should learn the truth who has already been enlightened with the truth. So, similar was the instruction by Ramanujacharya, by Parashar also to that disciple. So, he was doing exact same thing. So, that disciple the next day approached the sage, and that guru then that disciple mentioned that my guru Parashar has asked me to come here and ask you a question. To Saint Ananta he was asking, so that what qualities do I need before I'm able to realize who I am. So Ananta took a moment and then said that let me think about it, I will answer you later. But in thinking, like 6 months passed without Ananta never addressed his question. But the disciple waited patiently. He just busied himself with some menial services of the hermitage. But after that, one day there was a big festival that was held near Ananta's hermitage. So thousands and thousands of pilgrims came, and Ananta, this disciple of Parashar, was serving in that festival. But in between, he would feel hungry and he wanted to take a break, so he would make his own plate and he will sit down. But again, Ananta will say, no, first you serve the next group of pilgrims, then take a break. So he kept on doing, but in between he kept on sitting, but every time he took a break, Ananta, he said that no, you have to still serve the pilgrims. So like this, the whole day went. When the festive field was empty, then Parashar's disciple sat down to eat. And then Ananta approached him and he said that I believe that you have a question for me. So at that time, disciple was just brimming with eagerness. He jumped up and asked that, okay, what qualities should I develop so I can realize who I am? So Ananta smiled gently and he replied that, okay, one should be like salt, like a chicken, like a crane, and like you. I have nothing else to say. And he walked away. This disciple was bewildered that what is this? I waited 6 months for this answer. And he was totally confused. He didn't understand what this statement means to him. So he packed his belongings. He went back to Sri Rangam, where his guru was, Parashar. So he asked Parashar when he arrived home that, Parashar asked him that, did you get an answer to your question? So disciple said, yes, but I didn't understand. The disciple explained that how much trials and tribulation he had to go through during these 6 months, and And finally, like, he was given this cryptic answer. So on hearing Ananta's response, Parashar like was so happy that he was clapping his hand. He's telling that what a perfectly comprehensive realized answer he has said. Disciple again said, what do salt chicken cranes have to do with anything? So that time Parashar said that, okay, I will explain you, listen carefully. So the amount of salt in a dish must be just right. If there is too much or too little, the dish will not be satisfying. So just like that, just like salt, one who is on the spiritual path must find the balance. The Bhagavad Gita also teaches that those who aspire to a holy life should not eat too much, should not too little, not sleep too much, too little. They should give proper time to work, recreation, spiritual practices. So it is especially important that they are balanced when dealing with challenges or complicated issues, avoiding extremes. So just as one needs just the right amount of salt in a dish for it to taste good. So yeah, that what like being like a salt means. And again, like further explaining the other qualities of salt, Ananta explained that another quality of salt is that it remains hidden even though it adds flavor to a dish. When people will praise a dish by appreciating the qualities of grain, vegetables, spices, but no one will say that, oh, the salt in this dish was fabulous. Nobody say, we have never heard like people saying like that. So, but just like salt, true yogis also serve without wanting any recognition or praise. They're happy to give credit to others and interested simply in doing their best to give pleasure to the divine and benefit others. So yet another, so there is another furthermore quality of salt, that it relinquishes its sense of separateness and melts with the other ingredients. So just like salt, we also aspire to relinquish whatever egoism separate us from the loving relationship with the supreme and others. By becoming absorbed in our identity as a soul, we can also integrate ourselves fully as eternal loving servants of supreme. And further explaining, now he was explaining about chicken. Parashar continued that, like a chicken normally will select nourishing seeds from a pile of trash and leave the worthless items behind. So just like the chicken, a true yogi will also find the good in others and disregard the rest. So we should be eager to see others' good qualities and not find their faults. If we are compelled by circumstances to address someone's faults, we should do it only to benefit that person or others who may be affected by them. But if we fill our mind with apparent shortcomings of others around us, we will become polluted. Focusing only on the good qualities, however, is enriching. So through this analogy, we should also learn to seek constructive opportunities in every situation and not complain about the problems. If you look for reasons to complain, you will see them everywhere. So similarly, if you search for opportunities to do good, you will also see them in abundance. So just like the chicken, we should seek the essence of spirituality and its practices and focus on the real goal, leaving aside the unnecessary distractions of sectarianism. And in this way, we can appreciate the essence not only for our own path, but of the paths as well, of the other paths as well. And then he explained about crane. So the crane, Parashar said, that stands patiently on one leg and looks into the water. It lets small fish pass while it waits for a big fish. So when a big fish comes, the crane feasts. So similarly, this also teaches us the values of patience and remaining focused on what matters. So it takes patience and a willingness to let small stuff pass, even if we want to reach our goal. It's easy to get lost and superficial, but yogis go deeper. So just like the crane, they focus on bigger issues and release the smaller ones. And the reward is that they can feast on the truth and don't take the worldly gossip and propaganda seriously. So as for Inanta's inclusion of you, a true seeker of the self is like you. In your eagerness of truth, you endured so much difficulty that enthusiasm is essential for spiritual progress. You waited for 6 months, he said, without complaint before Ananta answered your question. You selflessly served thousands of pilgrims before you served yourself without objecting. So your willingness to endure difficulties in services to others is the nature of a true seeker. And so, yeah, further he just said that the heart is also like a field and the wisdom is like a seed. So a seed will grow only if a field that has been properly tilled and fertilized. We till the field of the heart through humility, gratitude, and services to others, remaining eager to learn despite obstacles. And love grows alongside wisdom when we cultivate these qualities. So spiritual knowledge is the most valuable gift, Parashar said, and it's not cheaply available, and we should wholeheartedly preserve in our pursuit of it, while having the patience to wait as long as it takes to achieve it. And then finally, Parashar smiled and said, Ananta could have explained all this to you instead of giving you a cryptic answer.
Right.
But because he was his old friend, so he thought that he wanted to share these priceless lessons with me as well. So when our eyes are opened by the words of wise, we see that lessons in even the most common of things, chickens and salt. Yeah. Anything you want to add, Prabhuji?
Thank you for sharing. So, yeah, so like the crane, one thing I just want to add is that we have to be concerned with solving the problems of life, not small, small things. The main problem is we are in the cycle of birth and death, and this is the big issue to solve. But we often get, sidetracked by small, small things, and then we try to solve those small issues, and the big problem remains unsolved. So that's what the crane also. This the big problem is we are in the cycle of birth, death, old age, disease, and we are suffering in this material existence. So anyway, the more can be said, but I'll let others say anything if they want to say something.
Can I say something about Anantarvar that gave this wisdom? Just to put it in context. So Anantarvar, as Mataji was mentioning, he lived in Tirupati, and even today you can. So there's something. It's a very interesting pastime. Maybe most of you know, but I'll just say it. When you go to Tirupati, you notice that Balaji has on his chin, he has this white spot, right? So that is actually, there's a story behind it. And Anantarvar wanted to make a temple pond. And his wife was actually pregnant at that time. So both of them, there was nobody at that time. So he was living alone there. So he would dig, and his wife would take whatever the earth that came out, and she would go far away and throw it. The Lord was witnessing this, and he couldn't tolerate that his wife, despite being pregnant, was doing this. So what he did, first he went to Anantarvar and he asked, "Can I help?" He went as a small boy and he asked, "Can I help?" And Anantarvar said, No, you go away. We're doing this, go away. Then the Lord just couldn't keep quiet. So he went to the wife and said, "See, you're pregnant and it's not good for you to do this. So how about this? He's not allowing me to help. So you just come till this spot, and then I'll take this earth from you and I'll go and throw it. So it's less burden for you." So then Anantarvar was noticing that the wife used to come back very fast after throwing the earth. And he was like, "Are you throwing it in the right place?" And she said, "Yeah, I'm throwing it in the right place." And then, this went on. And Anantarvar was still very he was suspicious. So at one time he followed his wife to see what was happening, and he saw this boy coming and taking the earth from the wife and throwing it out. So he had a crowbar, right? He was digging. So he had this a crowbar kind of thing with which he was digging. So he went after this boy and said, "I told you to go away, and you're still. Why are you still doing this?" And he ran after this boy with his crowbar, and then he threw it at him, and it hit him on his chin. And this boy just keeps running, and he enters the temple and he disappears. And after that, so then Anantarvar was like, "Where is this boy? Who is he?" So the next day, when he opened the temple, he saw that the Lord's chin was bleeding. And then he understood that it was the Lord Himself who came to help. And so then they had to put kapoor and all that, and till today they do that as a service. They put kapoor on his chin because that still has not really healed the wound, because the Lord doesn't want to forget. And when you go to Tirupati, as soon as you enter the temple, just on the right side, that crowbar is still hanging from the wall.
It's the same crowbar?
Hare Krishna.
Is it the same crowbar that he threw?
That's what I was told.
Prabhuji, they have written it on the near that crowbar. They have written it is Anantacharya's, and it is the old or rusted and old one. It have written as soon as you enter the temple on the right side. It is there, a long one.
Also, I heard Anant Acharya was told to cultivate this flower garden for Tirupati's worship, Balaji's worship, even though he had to separate from his spiritual master physically, but to serve, his Ramanujacharya told him that you should go and help with this. Right? What was he digging? He was digging. What was the reason he was digging?
For the temple pond, Pushkarni.
Pushkarni. Okay, so he was digging. So he was basically told to develop and like that, whatever. So it meant to be separate from the physical association. So I was reading this morning, Bhakti Vikas Maharaj sent. He said this is in Madhya Leela, satisfying the Lord's order is greater than going to Jagannath Puri. The Lord requested Nityananda Prabhu to stay there and broadcast the message of Krishna consciousness. So the Lord wanted Nityananda Prabhu to preach in Bengal. The Lord also entrusted a similar preaching responsibility to Rupa Goswami and Sanatana. While he stayed in Jagannath Puri, he sent everybody. The Lord also entrusted a similar preaching responsibility to Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami. Nityananda Prabhu was requested not to come every year to Jagannath Puri, although seeing Lord Jagannath greatly benefits everyone. Does this mean that the Lord was refusing Nityananda Prabhu a fortunate opportunity? No. One who is a faithful servant of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu must execute his order, even if one has to sacrifice going to Jagannath Puri to see Lord Jagannath there. And this is the mood of Srila Prabhupada, how he was staying in Vrindavan. Staying in Vrindavan was very beneficial and very nice. But he left Vrindavan to satisfy the order of his spiritual master to preach in the West. So one who is a faithful servant of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu must execute his order, even if one has to sacrifice going to Jagannath Puri to see Lord Jagannath there. So Lord Chaitanya's order is Yare Dekho Tare Kaho Krishna Updesh. In other words, it is a greater fortune to carry out Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's order than to satisfy one's senses by seeing Lord Jagannath. So Ananta Acharya, as you were saying, he sacrificed his physical personal association with Ramanujacharya to do service. So for the Lord, like that. So because Ramanujacharya wanted him to do that. Okay, so that's what came to my mind, and there was this thing I read today. So, okay. Of course, that doesn't mean we can't go, but I'm just saying that this was okay. Anything else? Anybody like to share?
I can sing one song.
Yes. One minute, let me put it here and share my screen.
Okay, व्रज जन मन सुखकारी राधे श्याम 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 मोर मुकुट मकराकृत कुण्डल गले वैजन्ती माला चरणननुपुर रसाल राधे श्याम 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 सुन्दर वदन कमल दल लोचन बाकी चितवन हारी मोहन वंशी विहारी राधे श्याम 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 वृंदावन में धेनु चरावे गोपी जन मन हारी श्री गोवर्धन धारी राधे श्याम 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 राधा कृष्ण मिले अब दाऊ गौरा रूप अवतारी कीर्तन धर्म प्रचारी राधे श्याम 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 तुम बिन मेरे और न कोई नाम रूपे अवतारी चरणन में बलिहारी राधे श्याम 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 नारायण बलिहारी राधे श्याम 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 व्रज जन मन सुखकारी राधे श्याम श्याम श्याम. Translation. Krishna gives happiness in the hearts of all the Vrajvasis. Radhe Shyam Shyam Shyam. He wears a peacock feather mukut, swinging makar-shaped earrings, and a Vaijanti garland around his neck, and the sound of his ankle bells is full of rasa. Radhe Shyam Shyam Shyam. His lotus face is very beautiful, and his eyes are like lotus petals. Wandering here and there, he charms everyone with his flute and threefold curved form. Radhe Shyam Shyam Shyam. In Vrindavan, he tends the cows in the pastures, he steals the gopis' minds and holds up Sri Govardhan Hill. Radhe Shyam Shyam Shyam. Shri Radha Krishna have united, and now the two have come as the beautiful golden avatar, preaching Kirtan Dharma. Radhe Shyam Shyam Shyam. I have no one but you in this world. You descend as the avatar of the beautiful name and beautiful form. Your lotus feet fill me with wonder. So this Narayan is filled with delight. Radhe Shyam Shyam Shyam. So Deen Bandhu Prabhu sings this song. So Krishna, he gives happiness in the hearts of his devotees. Rajvasis, they are serving Krishna unconditionally, and in return they are getting, so much satisfaction in their heart, which is the greatest wealth. And they want to give Krishna happiness. That's their only desire. And Krishna is very beautiful. Peacock feather, makar-shaped earrings. I was seeing in the morning Radha Raman DT, and I'm just pasting the link. I'm pasting the picture. Radha Raman is smiling with his teeth. Teeth are visible in this picture, as we have heard that sometimes his teeth is visible, sometimes it's not. So, we can meditate on Krishna's beautiful form. And Krishna is stealing the minds of the gopis. So one name of Krishna is Hari. Hari steals our minds. So Hari sambandhe nana artha dui mukhya atma sarva amangal hare prem diye hare man. So there are many meanings of Hari. The two prime meanings are that he steals our sins and he steals our minds and gives us love. So we can pray to Krishna that he may steal our mind, so our mind is absorbed only in thinking about his beautiful form and beautiful qualities. And Radha Krishna have united now and come as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And this devotee has written the song. He's Narayan Maharaj. He's saying that I have no one in the world but you. So actually, only Krishna is our eternal companion who will travel with us in every birth that we take, in any species that we go into. So we have to build that relationship with Krishna because he's the one who will come to save us in our time of need. That's the definition of humility, right? Prabhupada says that humility means nothing can save me except you, not my education, not my family, not my fame, not my money. Nothing can save me except mercy of Krishna. So when we have difficulty like with Draupadi, right? Nobody could save her. It was only Krishna. And with Gajendra, Gauranga Darshan Prabhu was saying that, Krishna is so merciful. Who came to save Ajamil at his deathbed? Ajamil, I mean, he chanted the name Narayan, but he didn't mean to be Narayan. But Krishna is so merciful that he took, the externals. He took the name. Okay, he chanted my name. And who came to save Prahlad Maharaj every time he was in trouble by his father? Who came to save Draupadi? And who came to save Gajendra? Gajendra, he recited prayers without, he didn't know that Krishna is a supreme Lord. So his prayers were general, right? That's what Gauranga Darshan Prabhu was saying, that his prayers were not directed towards Krishna, but he was speaking in a way that he was reciting the qualities of Krishna, and the qualities matched with Krishna. So Krishna is Bhavagrahi Janardhan. So he takes anything that nice we do, he expands it, and he gives us the benefit of doubt. And this devotee is filled with delight with Krishna's lotus feet, meditating on Krishna's lotus feet. And that's our aspiration as well. And we are satisfied and happy, just absorbed in thinking about Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji.
I was looking at Gajendra's prayers here. So, of course, Prabhupada gives in the second verse, he says Vasudev, but he doesn't say that Vasudev specifically. He says Om Namo Bhagavate Tasmai, the Supreme Person. So, like that. And the demigods are thinking, oh, he's praying, but he's not calling us. Were the demigods upset little bit?
Yeah, so Gauranga Darshan Prabhu was saying that some people have the intention to help us, but they don't have the capability to help us. Like they have the compassion to help us, but don't have the capability to help us. Some people have the capability to help us, but they don't have the compassion to help us. Krishna has both the compassion and capability, and he was saying that the demigods, they had the capability to help Gajendra, but they didn't have the compassion to help him. And Gajendra's family and friends, they had the compassion to help him, but they didn't have the capability. So they tried, but they were not able to save him, and ultimately they went away. But Krishna has both compassion and the capacity to help us. So he was, Gajendra was in one prayer, he was saying that Krishna, to whom it may concern, his prayer was like that. I don't know who's the Supreme Lord, but to whom it may concern, O Lord, whoever you are, there must be somebody who has a power to help me. And he was describing the qualities of this person. You must be Muktaya. You have the ability to protect me. Bhuri Karunaya, you have the compassion to protect me. And Alalaya, you are completely aware of everything that is happening to everyone. So you are aware of what I am going through. I don't need to tell you. Whoever you are, come, please help me.
Yeah, nice. So those were, yeah, Muktaya Bhuri Karunaya Namo Layaya. So says here, he has to be liberated, right? Only a liberated person can help somebody who is not liberated. If I am drowning, another person is also drowning, then they can't help me. So, so in the same way, the Supreme Lord should be, the whoever is helping should be Muktaya. Bhuri Karunaya, the unlimitedly merciful. Bhuri Dajana. So Karunaya is merciful. And Namaha Alayaya, Alayaya, or never inattentive or idle for the purpose of my deliverance. Okay, what did you say? Alaya.
Yeah, he says Alalaya means he's like he knows everything that is going on. He's like Paramatma knows everything. So you know what I'm going through. I don't need to tell you my suffering. You know already.
Like Gopi said in Gopi Geet, right? Akhila
Mhm.
Dehinam Antaratmadrik, right?
Yeah. So we know that you are Paramatma in the heart. So you know that we are searching for you.
Hmm. You can't say that you went home and you didn't know what happened to us. So,
Yeah. So Gauranga Darshan Prabhu was saying that for Gajendra, whatever he spoke, the qualities matched with the Lord. With Ajamil, the name matched with the Lord, and for Putana, the attire matched with a mother's attire. So these are all indirect. Krishna just accepted them anyways, even though they were not directly asking him.
although he says Bhavagrai Janardhan, but sometimes he overrides that. And Putana, he got, even though her bhav was not like to serve Krishna, but
Mhm.
still.
That's the chicken example Juhi gave, right? Even devotees Saragrahi. He picks up the good qualities in someone, he ignores the wrong ones. So that's the quality of Krishna. He expands our good qualities. He ignores all the offenses that we have done. Still, he gives us more and more chances to um, bring us closer to him. He doesn't give up on us in any way.
Yeah, otherwise we are finished. So, okay, thank you. Nice. Okay. Anything else I would like to say? Okay, so we'll read Bhagavatam. This is the child suffering in the womb. Okay, I'll read the verse. Katu, Katu Tikshnoshna Lavana, Ruksham Ladibhir Ulbanei, Matrir Bhukter Upasprishtah, Sarvango Thita Vedana. Owing to the mother's eating bitter, pungent foodstuffs or food which is too salty or too sour, the body of the child incessantly suffers pains which are almost intolerable. All descriptions of the child's bodily situation in the womb of the mother are beyond our conception. It is very difficult to remain in such a position, but still the child has to remain. Because his consciousness is not very developed, the child can tolerate it, otherwise, he would die. That is the benediction of Maya, who endows the suffering body with qualifications for tolerating such terrible tortures. So, the more, basically, the more the consciousness is developed, the more one cannot tolerate suffering. So, child's consciousness in the womb is not very developed. That's why he's suffering, but he is not feeling that much. Although at later on, like he prays to the Lord, but initially maybe it is not so developed. Like the trees, right? They are standing in the cold cold in the hot sun. Their consciousness is not very developed. They don't realize how they are suffering. But human beings, if they were asked to stand in cold like that, or in the hot sun, in some very hot place like the desert where cactuses grow like that, so then they cannot. So trees. So Prabhupada is saying that Maya actually covers the consciousness so that they can tolerate the situation that they are going through. So the more conscious you are, the more you will realize the suffering, basically. So like that, now we are not so conscious. So, or we are conscious but not fully conscious. So we are thinking birth, death, old age, disease. Yeah, this is not so much bad after all, because we are not. But actually, if somebody is very conscious, he will say, I don't want this suffering. I cannot tolerate this suffering. I have to find a solution to this suffering. But if your consciousness is not developed, you think it's like the goats and the pigs, they're eating, they don't know, they're going to be slaughtered and what's coming up. They're engaged in chewing the grain or whatever it's thrown to them. But if a human being were in that situation, he is been given some meal, and he knows that in 2 days he's going to be slaughtered. He can't relish that meal, right? I mean, generally speaking, unless yeah. So how can he relish that meal? Because he knows, whereas the animal is in ignorance. He doesn't know what's going. Although sometimes he may see that the goat before him is butchered, and but he still, when grass is thrown, he munches on the grass. So our situation is like that. We are seeing that everybody is slaughtered in this. So many people have died, and so many people are suffering in the hospital and so many places. But we are thinking, yeah, it's not like going to happen to me. So that is our covered consciousness. Maya puts a covering. So that's how we can carry on with our desires for enjoyment in this world, because we don't take it very seriously. Like, who was that? Buddha, right? He was living lavishly as a prince, because his father was concerned that my son will become sadhu. There was some prediction, either he'll become a great king or he'll become a sadhu. So he was always he was always living in luxury, and they were not showing him anything about this life which is miserable. But one day it happened, he happened to see, and then as soon as he said, oh, this is an old man walking with a stick, one day you'll also become an old man. Oh, and this person is dying, is being carried on a stretcher for funeral, one day you'll also die like this. Immediately said, oh, I cannot enjoy now. I have to go and I have to seek salvation like that. So, so that is the lesson. I mean, kind of the Prabhupada is conveying that consciousness is developed. Like even when Karna was it Parshuram, right? Parshuram was taking rest on his lap, and yeah, you want to tell?
No, Prabhuji.
And that scorpion came along or something, and it was biting Karna. And Karna was resisting. And when Parshuram woke up, he saw how the scorpion had kind of, beaten so badly, and Karna did not want to move so as to not disturb his guru, Parshuram. And then Parshuram, what did he conclude from that?
He is not a Brahmana. Because Brahmanas cannot tolerate pain, he must be a Kshatriya.
So he said, yeah, you cannot be a Brahmana because you Brahmanas cannot tolerate. So Brahmanas means it is good actually to be affected by suffering and to find a solution. Otherwise, you are suffering, and you are thinking, yeah, it's going on, it's okay, it's going on. That's why Sanatan Goswami, when he went to Lord Chaitanya, he said, everybody calls me a Pandit and everybody praises me, but I am such a fool that I don't know who I am and why these miseries are inflicting, threefold miseries are inflicting, suffering on me. So, like that, he presented himself. So, so this suffering is good if it brings us to, and conscious people, some people come to God because they are suffering, even little things. But if you are not so this thing, then sensitive, and you just go on with the suffering, and you don't realize what's actually happening. So, so the child in the initial stages is not very, maybe his consciousness is not very developed, so he can tolerate it. Otherwise, he would die. Prabhupada said, like they were to put you in a room like that, in a closet, for 9 months, if you are to put in a closet, and a dark closet, where you don't have enough space to move also, and your back is constantly arched, like bending, and you're bitten also by the worms, then you would die. Any like adult person. But the child's consciousness is not developed, so he can tolerate. That's by nature's arrangement. So that Krishna's arrangement. Okay, so the next verse. Anybody like to say anything? Ulbena sanvritas tasmin antrescha bahir avritaha aste kritva shira kukshav bhugna prishta shirodharaha. Placed within the amnion and covered outside by the intestines, the child remains lying on one side of the abdomen. And Prabhupada says left side means it's a male child and right side it's a female child. Something like that. Okay, so the child lies on one side of the abdomen, and his head turned towards his belly, and his back and neck arched like a bow. If a grown man were put into such a condition as the child within the abdomen, completely entangled in all respects, it would be impossible for him to live even for a few seconds. Unfortunately, we forget all these sufferings. And also, like last life death, what suffering I went through, I've forgotten. How much I suffered in the hospital or wherever, however I died in the accident, and then we forget. Unfortunately, we forget all these sufferings and try to be happy in this life, not caring for the liberation of the soul from the entanglement of birth and death. Because of Maya's influence, we don't take it very seriously that I have to get out of this cycle of birth and death. Prabhupada is saying we forget. And we try to become happy. It is an unfortunate civilization in which these matters are not plainly discussed to make people understand the precarious condition of material existence. Okay, so nobody is discussing. Everybody is thinking, yeah, it's very wonderful, he's having a child, but what is the child going through inside the womb? That nobody is discussing. It's ignorance, total ignorance. Prabhupada is saying here. So in the Bhagavad Gita, in the 13th chapter, verse number 8, Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadi Dukkha Doshanudarshanam, Prabhupada says, this should be discussed. The miseries of birth, death, like that. Especially, he says, the miseries of birth should be discussed. Yeah, here Prabhupada says, one should try to understand the distress of accepting birth, death, old age, disease. There are descriptions in various, and this you cannot solve, right? I mean, even if you have a lot of money and all these things, you can't solve these problems. There are descriptions in various Vedic literatures of birth. In Srimad Bhagavatam, the world of the unborn, the child stay in the womb of the mother is suffering, etc., are very graphically described. It should be thoroughly understood that birth is distressful because we forget how much distress we have suffered within the womb of the mother. We do not make any solution to the repetition of birth and death. Similarly, at the time of death, there are all kinds of suffering, and they're also mentioned in the authoritative scriptures. And you may have seen this how some of your relatives have gone through this or are going through. You can see this should be discussed. And as far as disease and old age are concerned, everyone gets practical experience. No one wants to be diseased, no one wants to become old, but there is no avoiding this unless we have a pessimistic. So he says, this should be discussed. Unless we have a pessimistic view of this material life, considering the distresses of birth, death, old age, and disease, there is no impetus for our making advancement in spiritual life. Okay, so we know all this, but we have this recap. So, next verse. Akalpa swanga cheshtayam shakunta iva panjare tatra labda smriti daivat karma janma satodbhavam smaran dirgham anuchvasam sharma kim nama vindate. So we are like Gajendra. We are helplessly in this jaws of this crocodile of time, in this pond of material existence. We are trapped. And then there are what, two kinds of teeth. Right? Crocodile has biting, something like that. The soft teeth and hard.
The crocodile's teeth?
Yeah, I think something you are saying or so was saying that there is sometimes there's good things and there is, or what was it?
I didn't hear that.
Okay.
You were saying about the elephant, दिखाने के दांत और चबाने के दांत और that's. That was he was talking about hypocrisy.
Okay. Yeah. So we are in the jaws of this crocodile. Um, I think Radha Maharaj described this nicely. Maya won't let go until we surrender. That in that verse he says, let's read some part of it. Despite Gajendra's effort, despite all of his hopes, this crocodile will just not let go of him. Gajendra, who is living with what any materialist person would consider an ideal life in every possible way. So he had nice family, he was enjoying in the pond, he was throwing water with his trunk, he was giving pleasure to his family members, they were all rejoicing, and he was very strong and like that, and all the animals were fleeing. It is described in the 8th canto, who is quite proud of his power, of his reputation, of his ability to control things, now finds himself trapped in the jaws of a crocodile and is fighting with this crocodile for 1,000 years, celestial years. And it doesn't say in the Bhagavatam, but if it was most of us and probably Gajendra, he must have been thinking this crocodile has to let go sometime. But despite his hopes, despite his efforts, the crocodile just will not let go of him. This is the way Maya works for everyone. She just won't let go, no matter what you do. The only thing that can break us loose from the jaws of crocodile, of material energies, when we totally humble ourselves like Gajendra, realizing that we are completely helpless and we surrender. So we don't surrender because we think it's not a helpless situation. Like Draupadi, as you were saying, completely, she was thinking, I'm completely helpless. There is no other way out of the crocodile of Maya except to surrender to Krishna. And this surrender, it requires to be of the qualitative feeling of Gajendra. So what Gajendra was, how he surrendered. So surrender is
So I
not...
was remembering
Yeah.
one thing that Gauranga Darshan Prabhu said. He said that you may be powerful at one place, but you may not be powerful at every place. So, like Gajendra, he's powerful on land, right? He's the king of the elephants. But in water, he's not that powerful. Crocodile is powerful in water. So, you're saying don't be puffed up. Um, that, yeah. So, like, yeah, we may not be powerful at all places.
Surrender is not by how we perform our rituals or how we perform austerities or how we become popular in the eyes of others or unpopular. It's a matter of really humbling ourselves and saying to Krishna, I'm yours. I'm suffering this crocodile of Maya. I'm suffering. This crocodile of Maya is killing me. And there is nothing I can do. And despite hope after hope, now I realize it will never go away until I surrender. So, when you have diseases like cancer and like this, then it will, you, it's very difficult when it's advancing and like that, to see, think that it's going to get better. Although the doctor may give hope like that, so many things. Sometimes there's devotees we are wondering when Maya is going to let up. When is she going to leave me alone? The answer is never until you surrender like Gajendra. Advancement in Krishna consciousness is not about how many verses we have learned. It's not about how many years we have been around. It's not about even how many times we have gone around Govardhan Hill or how many rounds we have chanted. All these parikramas, all these rounds that we were chanting are all meant to bring us to the point of total surrender. And until that total surrender, Maya is not going to give up. She is going to be there, and that is Krishna's mercy. So Maya's business is to filter candidates. So she is going to give you trouble till the very last time until you surrender. Krishna doesn't settle for less than complete surrender. He'll settle for whatever you give, but he wants you to give the highest. And you can't get the highest unless you realize there is nothing else. Else is coming and going like the seasons. There is only one thing that is permanent, and there is only one thing that can give me shelter, and that is Krishna. And we can read and hear and speak it, but we really have to not just believe it, but we have to act on it. Means every action, it should reflect in your every action, that you are surrendering to Krishna, like everything, prana, artha, dhiya, vacha, everything for my life and everything, surrender to Krishna. So, first we have to believe it, and then we have to act on it. Yeah, here it's saying, nice lecture. There are dark times in our lives, but nothing so dark as after the cosmic annihilation. There is nothing but darkness. Yes, in life it might be a hard day, but we have faith that better days will come. Maybe very stormy day. Okay, so the teeth I was. Let's see. The pleasures, here he says. Sometimes we recognize it is more, and sometimes when people are really enjoying, think they are having a good time. That's when the grips are the tightest. Yeah, Brahma lives 311 trillion years. We may have been may have been in the crocodile's jaws of material, but for thousands of Brahma's lifetimes, and for not a second that crocodile has ever let up. Sometimes we recognize it more, and sometimes when people are really enjoying and thinking they are having a good time, that's when the grips are the tightest. In other words, we can't get out. The pleasures are the one of the ways that those jaws, that crocodile has many teeth, and they are all sharp. Some of them are teeth of the pleasures that keep us trapped, and some of the teeth of miseries that keep us trapped. So it's not the, but they're all sharp, but some of them are the teeth of the pleasures that keep us trapped, and some of them are miseries. Sometimes we may shift from one tooth to another, but we never get out of the jaws. But Krishna has come in the holy name to deliver us. And then we realize what a blessing this crocodile is. Because without Maya, we may be eternally separated from God unless she made us suffer the way she does. So Maya is helping us. So in the spirit of Gajendra, not tomorrow, but today. So no procrastination. We should learn to sincerely take shelter of the Lord as we are chanting. So today we can decide, as Prabhupada said, today, from this day on, from this time on, I will surrender to Krishna. Like that, everything I will do is for Krishna's pleasure. Material desires never go away until you surrender to Krishna. When will we learn? Okay, so inspiring class. So how many times we'll go in the womb? Punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam. So in the next verse, the child thus remains just like a bird in a cage. And how do we get out of the thing? Is by devotional service for the pleasure of Krishna. Sacrificing everything for Krishna. Atmanivedanam, offering our very self to Krishna, offering our wealth, our words, our everything to Krishna. Sacrificing our desires. Surrender means to sacrifice our material desires and to accept Krishna's desires. It's sacrificing because you don't like to give it up, but you have to give up your desires and accept Krishna's desires, like that. So the child thus remains just like a bird in a cage without freedom of movement. At that time, if the child is fortunate, he can remember all the troubles of his past 100 births. Only if the child is fortunate, here it says. We'll read further verses also. And he grieves wretchedly. What is the possibility of peace and of mind in that condition? And what happens that he has died in his previous life. He went through a lot of suffering at time of death. Now again he has come back into another womb to experience more suffering. So there is he said, give me a break, but there is no break. It's like you already lost your life in your last life and you went through a lot of suffering. And now you are again entrapped in the womb. Again there is suffering. So we say from frying pan into the fire. So like that. It's no respite from all this. So what is the possibility of peace of mind in that condition? And he can remember all the things, his past 100 births. After birth, the child may forget about the difficulties of his past lives. But when we are grown up, we can at least understand the grievous tortures. Yeah, somebody like to say.
I would say that if there is distress that comes in our life, then I have also experienced that. I remember all the distresses I've gone through, not previous lives, but in this life, other distresses that have, because the mind is kind of in a depressive mood, so it remembers all the, we think that all the things that Krishna has not given us, or I had to go through this and that in my life. So when distress comes automatically, but that's what I think, that we remember our previous distresses too, because the mind becomes more depressed. It's thinking all negative.
So that is what is happening to the child. He's already in a distressful situation. And somehow he remembers the past distresses he had in her 100 births. Okay, so if we do not believe in the scriptures, that is a different question. So we can just brush it aside and say, oh, this is all humbug. This is all mentioned, but this is not all true. You can just say like that. To make yourself feel good and enjoy, you can say, okay, all these things are not, who cares about these things? It's not true. But that will not change the truth, right? If you don't believe in it. Of course, the person actually doesn't believe in it. So for him, it's not the truth. So, but then we should think about it. Why Bhagavatam is saying, why scriptures are speaking all these things, and Vyasadeva is writing. They are all writing untruth. So they are great saints, and if we do not believe in the scriptures, that is a different question. But if we have faith in the authority of such descriptions, then we must prepare for our freedom in the next life. that is possible in this human form of life. That's why they say this is the main purpose of human life, is to free yourself from this disaster. This this is why you have been given this human form of life. And if you don't, puvan bhavabdim na taret atmaha. After getting you don't cross the ocean of material suffering, then you are committing suicide. And how you can cross the ocean of material suffering? By sansara sindhum utitirshur ati dushtaram utitirshur.
अति दुष्टरमपि तीर्षा नान्यप्लवो भगवता पुरुषोत्तमस्य लीला कथा रसानिषेवनमन्तरेण पुंसो भवेत् विविधदुःखदवार्धितस्य. That we can cross this ocean of nations by being on the boat of hearing Krishna's pastimes.
Sansara sindhum ati dushtaram. Ati means very excessive. Dushtaram, difficult to cross. So utitirshur, one who wants to cross this very difficult ocean to cross. There is no other way. Nanyo plavo bhagavata purushottamasya. Plava is the boat. There is no suitable boat. Then lila katha rasa nishevanam antarena. To hear the narrations, lila katha, Krishna's lila. To cultivate taste for hearing Krishna katha. Then from that hearing about Krishna, then everything will come. The heart will become clean. Shinvatam sukatha Krishna punya shravana kirtana. And the disease of the heart, the lust, will also be eradicated. Vikriditam vrajavadupiridam cha Vishnu. That verse is there. Hridrog. So by hearing about Krishna's message, and also Bhagavad Gita, the 3rd chapter, Krishna describes. So then this the lust in our heart, which is the root cause of our transmigration, will get cleared by hearing about Krishna. And then we will go back home, back to God. Pumso bhaved vividha dukkha davarditasya. Vivid means various kinds of dukkha are there. Yeah. So, yeah, okay. For a person who is suffering in the fire of countless miseries and who desires to cross the insurmountable ocean of material existence, there is no suitable boat except that of cultivating devotion to the transcendental taste for the narrations of the Supreme Personality of Godhead's pastimes. And of course, after hearing, surrendering to Krishna. Devyesha Gudamayimam Maya Durataya Mamevaya Prapadyante Maya. Anyway, we are going to lose everything one day. So why not give everything to Krishna? We can think like that. One day I will have to lose everything. So we have a very efficient boat in this human form of body, and there is a very expert captain. Spiritual master, the scriptural injunctions are like favorable winds. This is referring to that Nradeha Madhyam Sulabham Sudurlabham Plavo Sukalpam Guru Karnatharam Mayanukale Nabhasuteritam Puman Bhavabdimna Taret Satmaha. If we do not cross over the ocean of nations of material existence, in spite of all these facilities, then certainly we are all intentionally committing suicide. So it is also chanting of the holy name. But the chanting also has to be quality chanting, pure chanting, like that. We should practice pure devotional service. We may not be pure devotees, but we should practice pure devotional service. Okay, the next verse. Arabhya saptaman mahasal labdabodopi vepitaha nekatraste suti vater Vishtapur Iva Sodaraha. Thus endowed with the development of consciousness from the seventh month after his conception, the child is tossed downwards by the airs that press the embryo during the weeks preceding delivery. Yeah, so that is the natural way of the child getting out of the womb, and the mother has to suffer that pain of the childbirth. Like the worms born of the same filthy abdominal cavity, he cannot remain in one place. Not sure what this means. Like the worms born of the same filthy abdominal cavity, he cannot remain in one place. Let's see. At the end of the seventh month, the child is moved by the bodily air and does not remain in the same place. So, birth in the material world is very troublesome, and death is also troublesome. So, Krishna is teaching us something, that coming to the material world is very troublesome. And after coming, you have to go through struggle, and then departing is also very troublesome. So, everything in this material world is troublesome. So, there is some lesson to learn. At the end of the seventh month, the child is moved by the bodily air and does not remain in the same place, for the entire uterine system becomes slackened before delivery. The worms have been described as Sodara. Sodara means born of the same mother. Since the child is born from the womb of the mother, and worms are also born of fermentation within the womb of the same mother, under the circumstances, the child and worms are actually brothers. We are very anxious to establish universal brotherhood among human beings, but we should take into consideration that even the worms are our brothers, what to speak of other living entities. Therefore, we should be concerned about all living entities. Prabhupada's compassion, how much compassion he has. It should be he did not even allow a tree to be cut down and unnecessarily. If there is, even to the bug, he said, "You chant Hare Krishna." So, very compassion for all living entities. We should be concerned about all living entities, okay. Dayaya sarva bhuteshu. Right now, who is concerned about the cows that are being slaughtered? Nobody is concerned. Prabhupada wanted to establish cow protection. In the material world, who is concerned? So many animals are being butchered. Is anybody talking about that? Nobody is putting it in the newspaper that so many souls were tortured and killed. Millions of souls, millions of animals were butchered yesterday. Is it the headlines? But if millions of human beings were slaughtered, then there will be big headlines. Oh, so many people died in this. So we have turned a blind eye to other suffering, to suffering of the animals and like that. We are actually not only blind eye, we are inflicting the suffering on the animals. So they are not suffering on their own. That's a different thing if they are suffering there. But we are also like participating in that suffering. Participating in giving them suffering by buying leather goods and all these things. So leather purses, leather shoes, leather car seats, leather sofa, which devotees should not buy, because otherwise you are part of the conspiracy. Of course, you may not be able to totally avoid, but as much as possible. Like Prabhupada says, you cannot avoid violence in this world. Jiva jivasya jivanam. One life subsists on another. So you can't avoid violence, but you have to minimize the violence. You have to minimize. So we eat vegetarian food so that the plants don't have a developed nervous system, and so they don't feel the same pain as you cut a chicken. So this is minimizing violence. So we may not be able to avoid completely. Although if we want, we can try. But some things may be inevitable, unavoidable. It also depends upon your situation and how much you are willing to sacrifice. So, the living entity in this frightful condition of life, bound by 7 layers of material ingredients, prays with folded hands, appealing to the Lord who has put him in that condition. It is said that when a woman is having labor pains, she promises that she will never again become pregnant and suffer from such a severely painful condition. So it is so excruciating pain that she says, no, no, I will not again go through this. This is too much. Similarly, when one is undergoing some surgical operation, he promises that he will never act in such a way as to become diseased and to have to undergo medical surgery. So sometimes, this open heart surgery, and when the arteries are blocked. Yesterday, I met this at the picnic. Met Krishna Jivani Mataji and Chandra Prabhu's wife. I forget her name. This. So she was saying that her father passed away all of a sudden, heart attack, and she had to go to India. So then, yeah, this Krishna Jivani Mataji was saying that how Indians are more prone to heart attacks. Why? Because their arteries are a little smaller. She's a doctor, so our arteries, the diameter of our arteries that carry blood to the heart is smaller. And on top of it, the food that we eat. And we have a sedentary lifestyle also.
Is it for Americans? It's different, Prabhuji, artery?
Yeah, she was saying like that.
Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah.
I mean, that it's, yeah. And then our lifestyle. We are eating also, and then our lifestyle. Like she was saying that, yeah, people used to eat rice and everything before, but they would work in the fields and like that. There was exercise and things like that. But now what has happened is like you eat and you just sit in front of the computer, or especially in America, in the car. And then when the doctor says, "Oh, you have a blocked artery," we have to do a triple bypass surgery. Then we say, "Oh my God, why did this artery get blocked? I should have taken care before. Now I will do exercise regularly and I will never." That's what Prabhupada is saying. Similarly, when one is undergoing some surgical operation, he promises that he will never act again in such a way as to become diseased. Or we ate something which was not very good, and we say, no, no, now from now on I will eat only healthy food. I will not eat this. This is junk food, actually. I should not eat this. So we decide like that. When the suffering comes. So same way, the lady says, I will never become pregnant again. It is so much suffering going through this. So, or going through death, old age, disease, like that. We say, I will never go to another womb again. I will just. So that is actually the right thing. When we go through suffering, we have to come to the conclusion that I don't want this to happen again. So he promises that he will act again in such a way as to become, never act again in such a way as to become diseased and have to undergo medical surgery. And when one falls into danger, he promises that he will never again make the same mistake. Similarly, the living entity, when put into a hellish condition of life, prays to the Lord that he will never again commit sinful activities and have to be put into the womb for repeated birth and death. In the hellish condition within the womb, the living entity is very much afraid of being born again. So he says, again, I will never come into this womb again. I promise you, Krishna, I just don't want to come in this womb. But when he's out of the womb, when he's in full life and good health, he forgets everything and commits again and again the same sins for which he was put into that horrible condition of existence. So as soon as we forget, then we are ready to do the same thing again. Even you are pious, even if you don't commit sins, unless you turn to Krishna, you are going to be put in the womb. Jayadvaita Maharaj was saying, even if you are in a rich mother's womb, because you are pious, so you get a rich birth. But still, it is not like you have some extra cushion there in the womb. some pillow is there, so that that child also has to suffer the same way as, you know, and maybe even sometimes more, because the rich mother may be eating and drinking and doing so many things. So I don't know, but so it's like that. Nobody is exempt until you turn back to Krishna. Even if you are doing pious activities, it will not save you from the cycle of birth and death. So, so the sin, the original sin is like they say in Christianity, right? Eating the forbidden fruit or something. So our original sin is we have turned away from Krishna. And until you rectify that, you are not going to get out of this material existence. Narottam Das Thakur also says, Chhadiya Vaishnav Seva Nistar Paye Chekeba. If you don't engage in service to Vaishnavas, then who has attained liberation without serving the Vaishnavas? So, so this is the the remedy. Okay, so like that, we can read more verses. So time 8:23. So we have to take it like seriously. I'm telling this to myself that we have gotten this opportunity, and this opportunity is not going to last forever. It's not like an open opportunity. Every time you will get this opportunity of being born as a human being, which is the only opportunity to get out. So, and only a little opportunity may be left for those who are older, because only a few years are left in life. Nobody lives 100 years now, so only few decades, or maybe that many, we don't know. But so only few years are left. So there is a very small window of opportunity left now to surrender to Krishna and to, yeah. So that's the one we have to utilize it and say bye bye to this material world forever. Okay. Of course, only Krishna's grace this can happen. We cannot say and do, but we can desire. As Prabhupada says, most of us don't desire to go back home, back to God, because we are comfortably situated in this material existence, in our nice prison cell, with our everything. So we don't desire, we don't see the miseries. Okay, we'll read a Krishna book for some time. It's all philosophical. We'll read some pastimes. Anybody has any comments? Okay. So, Jambavan was fatigued after fighting with Krishna, and his fatigue was removed when Krishna rubbed his hand. Like yesterday, we were reading about Radharani. Radharani says, "Oh, just your touch of your arms is going to relieve me of the pain." So, Krishna's touch will relieve us. And Prabhupada says we can touch Krishna with our tongue. This Mahamantra has descended. And we can get the same benefit as Prahlad Maharaj got when Nrsingadev put his lotus palm on his head. And the same benefit as Prahlad Maharaj we can get when we can touch Krishna with our tongue. So when we chant Hare Krishna, we should remember we are touching Krishna, because this holy name is non-different. Prabhupada says if you chant in this consciousness that the holy name is non-different from the Lord, I am in association of Radharani and Krishna, then you are a pure devotee. You may be in the neophyte stage, but you will become a pure devotee, because you are chanting with attention, because you are thinking this is Krishna, so let me pay attention. So if you chant with attention, then your heart will become clean. And heart will become clean, then you become pure devotee. So the chanting makes you a pure devotee if you chant with attention. And all the anarthas will go away. So Lord Krishna was satisfied by the prayers and statements of Jambavan, and to mitigate Jambavan's pain, he began to lightly rub the lotus palm of his hand all over Jambavan's body. Thus Jambavan at once felt relieved from the fatigue of the great fight. Like Gopakumar when he was embraced by Krishna. And so after many millions of births, we go back. It's like so much trouble and torment here in this material world. It's a relief. It's like it's an oasis when you are in the desert and you are being scorched by the heat and thirst. And then you get an oasis. So it's so refreshingly cool and nice. So that's the spiritual world. Going back, it's like that. Coming to the oasis. Lord Krishna then addressed him as King Jambavan because he, and not the lion, was actually the king of the forest. So Jambavan was addressed as king, having killed a lion with bare hands without a weapon. So Jambavan had killed lion. Krishna informed Jambavan that he had come to ask for the Shyamantaka jewel because ever since it had been stolen, his name had been defamed by the less intelligent. So they were saying Krishna killed Shatrajit because Krishna had previously asked Shatrajit for the jewel. Not Shatrajit, but Prasuna, his actually
His brother.
his brother.
Yeah.
Yeah, Prasena, who had Satrajit had refused to give the jewel to Krishna, and he had given it to Prasena, who went on a hunting and he was killed by the lion. So some people were thinking that Krishna wanted the jewel and he did not get it. So Prasena was killed by Krishna and the jewel was gotten. So Krishna, to remove blot on his reputation, he went in search of the jewel and he came to the dead body of Prasena, and then he saw the lion, and then he came to Jambavan. And then now he got so he says, I want this because it is going to free me from the bad reputation. So, where is it? Okay, let me go back here. Krishna book. Krishna informed Jambavan that he had come to ask for the Shyamantaka jewel because ever since it had been stolen, his name had been defamed by the less intelligent. Krishna plainly informed him that he had come there to ask for the jewel in order to be free from this defamation. Jambavan understood the whole situation, and to satisfy the Lord, he immediately delivered not only the Shyamantaka jewel, but also his daughter Jambavati, who was of marriageable age, and presented her to Lord Krishna. So, getting married to Lord Krishna. Jambavati, one of the queens. The episode of Jambavati's marriage with Lord Krishna and the delivery of the jewel known as Shyamantaka was finished. So we may think Jambavati, being the daughter of a bear, like he must be in a bear's body, but she actually transformed into a beautiful queen, right? Isn't it? Or was she already in a beautiful female body, human female body? I don't know. The episode of Jambavati's marriage with Lord Krishna and the delivery of the jewel known as Shyamantaka was finished within the mountain cave. Although the fighting between Krishna and Jambavan went on for 28 days, the inhabitants of Dwarka waited outside the tunnel for 12 days, and after that they decided that something must have happened. It's like Bali and Vali and this demon fighting, and Sugri was waiting outside. So they were also waiting in the cave because Krishna had gone with everybody to find the jewel. So they were all waiting outside. 28 days and something undesirable. They thought maybe Krishna was killed or something. They could not understand for certain what had actually happened. And being very sorry and tired, they returned to the city of Dwarka. So they were feeling very sorry, disturbed. They thought Krishna must have been killed. Okay, so we will continue tomorrow. It's 8:30. Thank you very much for your association this morning. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna, Prabhuji.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you,
Those who want to go to the temple for helping in the Sunday feast, they can go. They always need help. Okay, Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.